These days, people tell you to look for safety, stay away from pain, and think that happiness is the most important thing in life. But Dostoevsky would say this is just a dream. He thought that the truth about people was much scarier and darker. You are hurting not because you are flawed, but because that is what life is all about. You don't always want to be free. Sometimes it feels like a burden that you want to get away from. Your love is more than just a feeling. It's a duty that requires effort. And the bad things you worry about in the world are already inside you, just waiting to be seen. His lessons cut through the nice lies of modern positivity and show you what you'd rather not say. That pain shapes you more than pleasure, and that meaning is more important than comfort. We can't avoid suffering. Dostoevsky once said that people with a lot of knowledge and a big heart will always have to go through pain and suffering. This means that your life gets harder the more you think and feel about it. He knew this because he was alive. He was caught, almost put to death, sent to a prison camp in Siberia, and given a sentence of years of poverty and exile. But while he was in pain, he realized that suffering is not a temporary problem. It is a permanent part of being living. It follows you when you're sick, when you feel guilty, when someone betrays you, when you lose someone you care about, and even when you're happy, because happiness is short-lived. Dostoevsky didn't agree with the idea that happiness is what people are naturally like. To him, happiness was rare, and painful things happened most of the time. He thought of pain as something that breaks down lies and makes you see yourself as you really are. Life is shallow and doesn't have any depth or reflection if there is no pain. Think about the times when you learned the most. They probably weren't when you were feeling good, but when things were hard and you had to face yourself. This is what Dostoevsky means. Pain makes you aware, and being aware makes you deep. You often think that getting rid of pain will make your life better. In order to get away from pain, you look for easier work, safer relationships, and faster distractions. On the other hand, Dostoevsky's view says that the more you protect yourself from pain, the less alive you become. In his books, people who try to avoid pain by getting more money, power, or denial end up giving up and becoming hopeless. People who face their pain, even if they don't want to, gain strength and understanding. He says that you can't get rid of pain without getting rid of people. Pain is also linked to spiritual growth in this way. You can't really understand or care about other people if you don't have it. When you're in pain, you can feel other people's pain. You can better understand how heavy life is when you've been through hard times. Dostoevsky's characters fall a lot, sometimes to the lowest point you can imagine, but it's through this fall that they start to rise again, learning more about themselves and their morals. This isn't a call to seek pain just for the sake of it. It's important to note that Dostoevsky did not praise or romanticize pain. Instead, he said that it is linked to both existence and awareness. To live a fuller life, you have to be okay with pain. Rejecting pain is the same as refusing to be aware. If you accept it as a fact of life, you can start to see things more clearly. This truth might seem scary to you. In today's society, the goal is to get rid of pain through progress, science, and ease of living. But Dostoevsky would warn you that the inner struggles of guilt, fear, envy, and death will always be there. Even if you can erase the suffering of others, they can't be taken away by technology or money. This is why his books are still important. They don't show a world with easy solutions. Instead, they show you the problems you already have. We can't avoid suffering. It puts more weight on you. The more you fight it, it tells you more about yourself. The more you face it. Dostoevsky thought that pain was an important part of life, not something that was bad or destructive, because it makes you think, it warms your heart, and it truly makes you human. If pain is necessary, then freedom is just as hard to achieve. Freedom, in Dostoevsky's view, was not a gift that most people value, but a responsibility that most people fear. He said that the most important thing for man is to find someone to give the gift of freedom to as soon as possible. Freedom sounds like the best thing in the world, but in reality, it means duty, uncertainty, and making decisions all the time. Being free means that you are the only one responsible for the decisions you make, and this weight makes people want to get away from it. This happens all the time. Many people like the security of strict routines, power that can't be questioned, or strong beliefs that take away their need to be responsible. Some people hide their nervousness by turning to drugs, alcohol, or other habits that make them feel better. This was something that Dostoevsky saw in both people and groups. Not everyone wants freedom. Sometimes, they want to give it up in exchange for safety, order, or even slavery. This idea is brought to life in his story about the Grand Inquisitor in the Brothers Karamazov. In this story, freedom is shown to be such a terrible gift that people are willing to trade it for bread and safety. It's strange that people fight for freedom when it's taken away, but they don't know how to use it when it's given to them. When you're free, you can't put the blame for your life on anyone else. Everything that goes wrong is your fault. Dostoevsky said, "This is why freedom scares people more than bars. If you want to live openly, you have to face life without any excuses and decide what you stand for." Think about how often you have to make decisions you'd rather not make. Moments like picking a job path, ending a bad relationship, or telling the truth even if it means taking a risk call for freedom. But it's always tempting to let someone else make the choice, or wait until things happen and they make the choice for you. To avoid responsibility is to avoid the very core of freedom, as Dostoevsky would say. The chains are not put on from the outside. Instead, people inside accept them. This idea shows up in all of his books. When characters hold on to power, belief, or illusion, they often give up when they realize how weak they are. People who choose freedom, even when it means making mistakes and going through pain, face the hard realities of life, but become truly themselves. His goal was for you to understand that freedom is not ease, it is weight. You have to decide if you will handle it or give up on it. Freedom also shows us how easily we can hurt ourselves. In his writings, Dostoevsky said that people do bad things just to show that they are free. The will may choose the opposite road, even when reason points in that direction, even if it's just to show that it is independent. This shows that freedom isn't just about chances, it's also about the scary chance of making mistakes, failing, and ruining everything. In this way, chance and freedom go hand in hand. You might think that people will simply do well once they have freedom. Dostoevsky disagrees with this idea. He is adamant that freedom without principles, a reason for living, or inner strength quickly falls apart into chaos. Why do so many people turn back to tradition, authority, or belief? Because they need something to hold the weight of freedom and give it value. Without that, freedom turns into an awful void. Dostoevsky thought that what you do with your freedom was more important than whether you have it or not. Do you try to avoid it by relying on outside forces, or do you take on the duty it brings? Freedom shows you that you have to make choices in life, just like pain does. Being alive means making choices, and making choices means taking full responsibility. Because of this, freedom, even when it is feared, is still what shows if you really live as a person or hide behind chains. If freedom is hard on the soul, love makes things even more difficult. Dostoevsky said that love is more than just a feeling. He said it is a moral act, a way of seeing someone as they were meant to be, not as they are with all their flaws. He wrote that to love someone is to see them the way God made them. Looking at it this way, love isn't just a feeling, it's an action that recognizes the chance of goodness in another person, even when their flaws and weaknesses are clear. Love isn't romantic in his books. It does not ignore bad things or make excuses for bad behavior. Instead, it acknowledges the fight of people and the chance for redemption. You don't miss what's wrong when you love this way. You know that the other person has both darkness and light, but you choose to think that the light is stronger. This is the reason Dostoevsky linked love to duty. When you love someone, you have to look past their flaws and see what they can become. This makes love hard because it needs effort and patience. Dostoevsky said that to love someone is not to be overcome by desire or affection. but to keep seeing their better potential, even when they do things that let you down. This is why his idea of love is hard instead of simple. It needs patience, a sense of duty, and strong morals. Without these, love either falls apart into fantasy or anger. You might think of love as something that just happens to you, as a feeling that you can't change. In contrast, Dostoevsky says that love is an action, a choice to see past someone's flaws and praise their best qualities. This is why he thought love and morals were inseparable. It takes wisdom, determination, and giving up something. It's not just a treat or a way to feel better. You choose to take on this duty. This way of thinking changes how you think about relationships too. If love is seeing possibility, then it doesn't go away when things go wrong. Love lasts through hard times because it is based on understanding, not emotion. Dostoevsky wrote about families, lovers, and strangers, but this idea kept coming up. Love is defending human dignity in places where it is easy to do so. Because of this, even his saddest books often have touching scenes where love shines through the sadness to show that he still believes in people. This lesson is hard and clear for you at the same time. It asks for more than love or attraction. It wants you to see people for who they really are. It also makes clear why a lot of relationships end when love is only seen as comfort and not as a recognition of promise. It falls apart. Dostoevsky's view is that love is shallow when it doesn't take into account battle. When you accept its flaws and choose to see what's possible beyond them, it becomes deep. So love shows you how you see other people and yourself. If you can't see your own room for growth, it will be hard to see it in other people. You treat other people the same way you treat yourself if you only look at your mistakes. Dostoevsky's lesson is that love starts with making the moral choice to believe in everyone's in your own potential, even when it's not perfect. Now you can see that his idea of love is much darker, heavier, and more serious than our current ideas of love or simple affection. That doesn't mean ignoring flaws. It means choosing to see past them and taking on the obligation that comes with that. Sign up to make sure you don't miss the next parts if you want to keep learning from these lessons. Dostoevsky's ideas keep getting better, and each one changes how you think about freedom, right and wrong, and yourself. Dostoevsky says that evil shows you what is real, while love shows you what is possible. He didn't agree with the idea that evil is something separate, far away, or only criminals and rulers have. In his books, everyone has evil inside them. You feel uncomfortable around his characters because they show cruel, lustful, greedy, violent, and jealousy in ways that are similar to things you do. It is clear what the lesson is. Evil is not out there, it's inside you, your friend, and everyone else who acts like it's not there. This realization isn't meant to stop you. It's meant to force you to be honest with yourself. When you only think of evil on the outside, you separate people into good and bad, making yourself always the safest. Dostoevsky thought this was a dangerous lie to oneself. The moment you deny that you have evil inside you, you stop seeing how it affects what you do. Being honest means admitting that you have the same urges that make other people mean and rotten, even if you keep them hidden or under control. This point of view explains why his books are so scary. Raskolnikov kills because he is proud and can explain it. But his thinking is not strange. It comes from the same need for approval and superiority that many people have, but taken to the extreme. In the brothers Karamazov, Ivan's intellectual rejection of God isn't just an idea. It's a fight with anger, bitterness, and hopelessness that many people who have been wronged know all too well. You have to see the same roots in your own thoughts and feelings, as Dostoevsky does, by showing these extremes. The thing that blinds societies and people is their refusal to see this. People who live in a society that thinks evil only happens to enemies, outsiders, or criminals miss the corruption in its own structures and people. When someone thinks they are innocent, they can't see how their anger, pride, or envy affect the decisions they make. Dostoevsky saw that admitting that you are bad is not a sign of weakness, but the first step toward being honest. Without this, morality is weak, and taking responsibility is difficult. It's not the same thing to say that everyone is guilty of the worst crimes. Instead, it means admitting that the seeds of cruelty, selfishness, and damage are already inside each person. What sets people apart is not whether evil exists or not, but whether they face it, control it, and make a different choice. If you think you can't be hurt by evil, you leave yourself open to it. Saying it out loud makes it possible to fight it. You can see how true this is when you think about everyday things. It's easy for anger to turn into mean words or deeds. When desire doesn't care about other people's worth, it turns into greed. Disrespect turns into pride. These extremes don't happen once in a while. I'm tempted by them every day. Dostoevsky wanted you to understand that what other people think is horrible comes from the everyday problems you have in your own mind. When you know this, you know not only yourself, but also how weak all moral systems are. It's hard to face this truth, but it's important. When you see that you are bad, you start to take responsibility for it. You stop blaming everyone else for everything that's wrong in the world, and start taking responsibility for your part, no matter how small. Dostoevsky thought that this kind of awareness was the first step toward honesty. Being honest doesn't start with admitting other people's flaws. It starts with admitting your own darkest desires. He said this was the reason why bad should not be ignored or denied. Because he strips his characters of their ideals. He makes you see what people are really like. His books show that the line between good and bad is not between countries or people, but in each person's soul. When you see that line in yourself, you can't hide it. Dostoevsky thought that guilt was one of the most destructive forces in the human mind. If evil lives inside everyone, then guilt is its result. He wrote that telling the truth is the hardest thing in the world, and being nice is the easiest. Lying to others and to yourself makes it easier for sorrow to grow without being stopped. Living in lies makes you sick to your stomach. Over time, guilt changes not only how you feel about yourself, but also how you treat other people. It makes you feel alone, changes you, and keeps you from finding peace. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov vividly feels this tragedy. After killing someone, he tries to explain why he did what he did, and even say that it was necessary. Still, no amount of reasoning can keep him from feeling guilty. His guilt keeps following him around in his dreams, thoughts, and interactions. He tries to say he didn't do it, but the weight gets heavier the more he tries to hide it. In Dostoevsky's works, guilt is shown not to be an outside punishment given by society, but an inner pain that is part of being human. This truth shows up every day. When you lie, break trust, or don't do what you know is right, you instantly feel guilty. You can take your mind off of things by doing work, having fun, or making excuses, but deep down, your conscience is still upset. The guilt gets stronger the more you hide the truth. This is why Dostoevsky said that the only way to be saved is to repent and tell the truth. It hurts to tell the truth, but it's the only way to get rid of the disease that lies spread. He also knew that shame is social as well as personal. Collective guilt leads to corruption and failure. When whole societies deny the wrongs they do, and when groups refuse to face the harm they cause, because denial can only last for so long, a society that lives on lies will finally fall apart. In the same way, someone who refuses guilt breaks down inside until they can't keep going any longer. This is where Dostoevsky's understanding comes in. Guilt is destructive, but it also shows the way to change. It hurts you more the longer you deny it. But if you face your guilt head on, it can lead to honesty, humility, and peace. Denial or self-justification never help people get better in his books. It's gained by confessing, facing the whole truth, and being able to handle the pain that comes after. Then the mind can start to get better. In this way, the truth is both scary and freeing. When you admit shame, you put yourself out there, give up your pride, and allow others to judge you. But it also frees you from having to keep secrets and act fake all the time. Dostoevsky knew that pride would fight this step, but that the soul would suffer without it. His characters show that ignoring guilt leads to pain, while admitting guilt is the first step towards starting over. As someone who has lived this, you also know this. Being quiet about crime hurts a lot. Even though admission may be hard, it's necessary for life to move on. Dostoevsky would tell you that the only way to heal the soul is to take the hardest road. The truth is the best way to treat sorrow, even if it hurts. Without it, things will fall apart. If guilt kills the soul, then compassion can save it. Dostoevsky thought that kindness was the best way to tell how civilized a society was. In his writing, he said that going into a society's jails shows how civilized it is. His view is that how you treat the weakest and most disadvantaged people shows more about your morals than money, power, or cultural successes. If you look at a jail, you can see how people feel about society. This idea came from my own experience. Dostoevsky spent years in a prison camp in Siberia with thieves, killers, and people who were not liked. He saw for himself how being mean or not caring about the doomed showed not justice but dehumanization. He said that the true test of a society's greatness is not its monuments or military wins, but how well it treats the people it has punished. People have given up on being human if inmates are treated like they are less than human. The lesson isn't just for jails. How you treat the weak, like the poor, the sick, or the ignored, shows what your real values are. Kindness isn't judged by how you treat strong people, or people who can give you something in return. How you treat people who can't repay you, are easy to ignore, or are inconvenient to notice, will show how much you value it. Dostoevsky thought this is where morals either stays strong or falls apart. In his books, moments of kindness often happen in the worst places. Based on his time in jail, he shows in The House of the Dead how acts of kindness have a huge impact on people, even criminals. A small act of kindness can lift someone's spirits and make them feel like they have value again. He did this to show that kindness is not a sign of weakness. Even when things are bad, it is this that gives life value and makes it bearable. The lesson is useful for you. No matter how many parties, speeches, or claims a society makes, those things don't tell you much about its morals. Take a look at its jails, hospitals, and how it treats the weak and elderly. Also, if you want to know the real you, don't just look at how you treat others who are lower or higher than you. Watch how you treat people who can't give you anything. This is where real kindness shows itself. From Dostoevsky's point of view, civilization is not always linked to progress, science, or wealth. He tells you that these accomplishments don't mean much if they cost you your honor. People who don't care about others are like people who don't have souls. And someone who doesn't have kindness may be successful, but they don't live fully as a person. This lesson is important because there is no way out of it. It doesn't let you decide what is right based on what is easy or comfortable. You have to be honest about how you deal with weakness, pain, and loss. Dostoevsky thought that kindness was the best thing because it requires you to put aside your own needs and your pride and see the humanity in others, even when everyone else doesn't. Without it, shame grows and bad things get worse. It makes even the darkest places safe to live in. If kindness shows how civilized we are, then meaning shows how strong we are. Dostoevsky said that what hurts people is not the pain itself, but what it means. This difference shaped his whole view of how people can endure. When pain seems random, pointless, or empty, it can crush you. But when it's linked to a cause, it's easier to deal with and can even change you. To put it another way, pain without a purpose makes you hopeless, but suffering with a purpose gives you strength. He learned this from the hard times he went through. He had to deal with hunger, shame, and horrible conditions while he was locked up in Siberia. He did notice, though, that people who held on to something meaningful, like faith, family, or redemption, were able to handle a lot more than those who gave up on meaning. It wasn't that there was no pain, it was that there was direction. He came to the conclusion that what kills people is not pain itself, but the thought that their pain is pointless. People in his books who don't have any purpose often give up and become hopeless or nihilistic. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov not only feels guilty, but his intellectual defenses also don't make sense. Not only does the fact that he killed hurt him, but the fact that it was for no good reason also. On the other hand, people who connect their problems to love, religion, or moral duty become stronger and can keep going. Meaning turns suffering from an empty weight into a load that can be handled. The lesson is both personal and general for you. You will suffer when you lose something, get sick, are betrayed, or fail. But what matters is not the pain itself, but whether you use it for something. If you think that your pain has no purpose, it turns into hopelessness. It can be a teacher if you connect it to growth, duty, or a higher value. The idea that Dostoevsky had is that people are not killed by pain, but by believing that pain has no purpose. That's why purpose is more important than comfort. Comfort takes away the pain for a while, but it leaves you unprepared for when the pain comes back. Meaning, on the other hand, gives you the tools to deal with pain and make it a part of your life. This is why people often go through unbearable hardships when they think it's for a reason bigger than themselves. Giving meaning to pain is what makes soldiers, parents, reformers, and survivors strong, not getting rid of it. It was clear to Dostoevsky that this power comes from inside, not from outside circumstances. You might think that growth in science, money, or safety will keep you from feeling hopeless. Dostoevsky would tell you not to do that. External progress doesn't get rid of pain. It just changes the way it looks. Being happy isn't enough to make a life meaningful. When you give things meaning, even hard times become bearable. This is why he puts so much weight on faith and higher values, not as rules to follow, but as anchors that keep pain from falling apart into emptiness. This is shown to you in your own life. When you go through hard times for the sake of someone you care about, or because it is the right thing to do, there is still pain, but it is handled in a different way. The lesson that Dostoevsky gives us is clear and unwavering. Meaning is stronger than pain, and without it, suffering is terrible. It turns pain into a way to get stronger. Though reason is important, it's not enough to explain why people do the things they do. According to Dostoevsky, people are stupid. He didn't agree with the idea that people are only motivated by logic, self-interest, or usefulness, which was common at the time. Instead, he saw that people often do bad things, even things that could kill them, to show their freedom or independence. Rationality can explain some of the way people act, but never the whole thing. Dostoevsky gives this idea a voice in notes from underground through a character. The underground man picks things that hurt him on purpose, making fun of the idea that math or reason can understand human nature. He says that freedom would be gone if all of life's decisions could be predicted by numbers and models. Even when it hurts them, people sometimes go against reason to protect their rights. Dostoevsky thought this showed how contradictory people are. This is true in everything you do. People stay in relationships that are bad for them, miss chances that would make their lives better, or ignore advice that is obviously good for them. When the truth would help them more, they sometimes tell lies. Out of pride or anger, they also hurt what they love the most. Even though these actions don't make sense, they show something Dostoevsky knew. People need to be independent, even if it costs them a lot. This illogical part is what makes systems based only on reason fail to capture reality. Some economists, philosophers, and political leaders think that people will always do what is best for themselves. Dostoevsky would tell you that people are looking for more than just safety. They want to find meaning, be free, and be noticed, even if doing so will ruin them. When faced with real life, rational systems fall apart because they don't take into account the soul's disordered and contradictory parts. You should think twice about the idea that thinking alone can help you make decisions after reading this lesson. Being logical is important, but it can't fully explain why you do what you do. Feelings, pride, revolt, and want all affect how people act. You pick harm over gain sometimes because it shows that you are not a machine, not because it makes sense. This is why Dostoevsky thought people don't follow the rules. People being illogical is not a flaw, It's part of being free. This is also why he told people not to believe in ideal plans that promise everything will be fine. If you try to change society based only on logic, you'll miss the fact that people will fight back, protest, and do bad things just to show they are free. He didn't think this was a mistake. He thought it was a normal part of life. The illogical keeps things from getting out of hand, so that order is never complete. In history, uprisings that are supposed to free people often end in chaos, and people sometimes destroy order to avoid being like everyone else. You can see it in the way you act when you make decisions that go against your plans, but show that you are independent. Irrationality is not good, but Dostoevsky's point is that we can't avoid it. Human life can't be summed up in numbers. This lesson is just as important now as it was back then. People still do things that don't make sense, even though science, psychology, and technology have come a long way. These actions show how complicated freedom really is. Dostoevsky thought that ignoring this was to get the idea of what it means to be human wrong. Irrationality is also important, but if you don't see it, you won't understand the whole picture. If people aren't just logical, then the question of what keeps morals together becomes very important. For Dostoevsky, this was very clear. If God doesn't exist, then anything is possible. He didn't mean that people would instantly commit crimes without religion. What he meant was that without some higher values beyond personal preference, no principle can stop people from being cruel to each other. When morality is based on nothing but individual wants or group needs, it falls apart. Ivan has a hard time with this very thought in The Brothers Karamazov. He says that if the universe doesn't have a deeper meaning, then life doesn't have any worth on its own. And morality isn't absolute. This isn't just a religious claim, it's also a psychological and social one. Dostoevsky knew that people who don't believe in higher values run the risk of nihilism, a state in which nothing is holy and everything is up for discussion. If you boil morality down to human will, then power and desire decide what is right and wrong. History shows us this danger. When societies say that morality is something that people made up, they often replace it with ideas that say being cruel is okay, in the name of progress, order, or power. There is no way to argue against these kinds of justifications without a higher bar. Dostoevsky was saying that violence between people can't be stopped without transcendent values, which can come from faith, conscience, or universal moral law. For each person, this realization brings up a specific question: what holds you back when no one is looking? Morality falls apart in secret if it's just an understanding between people. Dostoevsky noticed that people need to feel responsible for more than just themselves. If not, morality will just be a matter of convenience, thrown out whenever it gets in the way of what you want. That's why he put so much stock in faith, not as blind belief, but as a rock that keeps him from falling apart into meaninglessness. This doesn't mean he just argued for obeying. His figures struggle with doubt, rebellion, and the fear of being free, but he argued that denying any higher standard was like putting life down to hunger and math. Faith versus cynicism wasn't just an idea to him, it was a real choice that affected how people lived. People and groups will fall apart if they don't believe in something bigger than themselves. The lesson is that morals is more than just using your head and being afraid of getting caught. It takes having faith in values that go beyond what is happening right now. You can find this in a faith, your conscience, or a philosophy that knows that every person is sacred. It's still clear what Dostoevsky meant by his warning. Take away this base, and morals becomes weak and easy to break. It gives meaning to everything, even pain and freedom. If morality falls apart without higher ideals, the next fight that can't be avoided is over the truth. Dostoevsky showed that lying hurts but frees, while telling lies makes people feel better but hurts them. When his characters face truth, they often go through a lot of pain, but they also start to move toward freedom. In the short term, People who hide behind illusions, excuses, or lies may avoid pain, but over time, their hearts die. Being honest is the hard way to go, but it's the only way to heal. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment is a great example of this. After committing a crime, he keeps trying to explain and hide it. He tells himself that he is different, that what he did was reasonable, and that morality doesn't apply to him. But none of these lies make things better. The weight of his denial makes him hopeless until he has no choice but to admit. The truth can cause pain, but it can also save people. Dostoevsky's lesson is that it costs more to lie than to face the painful truth. In everyday life, you can see this trend. Many people tell themselves lies about bad habits, failed relationships, and jobs that don't fit them. In the short term, the lie spares you pain, but in the long term, it weakens you and clouds your judgment. Sometimes facing the truth hurts, but it's the only way to grow. Without the truth, there can be no growth. When there is no truth, shame grows and freedom is empty. Dostoevsky also used this lesson to change the world. He said that countries and institutions that are built on lies fall apart in the end. While lying may keep things running smoothly for a while, the bigger the fall when the truth comes out, the deeper the lie. That's why he didn't see honesty as a luxury, but as a way to stay alive. A culture that doesn't accept the truth will eventually fall apart. Truth is never easy because it takes away all the lies. To face it, you need to be humble, ready to say you were wrong, and brave enough to deal with the results. But it also gives freedom. When you accept the truth, you are no longer stuck in fantasy. You can be clear about what you want to do, take responsibility, and start over. This is shown over and over again in Dostoevsky's stories. Healing can't start until the truth is told. This means that you open the way to freedom every time you choose the truth, even if it hurts. Every time you choose to deny pain, it gets worse instead of better. Dostoevsky's lesson is similar to all of his darker ideas. Pain is unavoidable, but when connected to the truth, it can lead to freedom. Truth doesn't get rid of pain, but it does turn it into a way to start over. Denial, on the other hand, makes you feel better while slowly killing your soul. If the truth sets you free, then forgiveness calls for humility. Dostoevsky went over this lesson over and over to show that pride makes people separate, but humility heals the mind. Raskolnikov doesn't start to get better in Mistake and Punishment until he gives up his intellectual pride, admits his mistake, and is ready to suffer for it. His recovery won't happen right away or be simple, but it starts as soon as he stops acting like he's better than everyone else and admits he's wrong. For Dostoevsky, this act of shame is the only way to heal. He thought that pride was the worst thing about people. Pride makes you cut off from other people and makes you think you are better or more capable than them. It stops you from seeing the truth and makes you less able to feel kindness. In Dostoevsky's books, the character who is too proud always falls apart because pride can't last. It makes you feel trapped and alone in a cage you made for yourself. However, shame breaks this feeling of being alone. It's possible to start over when you admit you're weak, guilty, or need help. You can see this from your own life. If you're proud, you won't accept when you're wrong. Even if it's clear, it's like you don't want to admit it, take blame, or explain away your mistakes. But this only makes shame last longer and stops change. When you admit mistake, even if it's hard, you make room for growth and reconciliation. While humility doesn't get rid of pain, it does change it so that it heals instead of hurting. Society can also learn from Dostoevsky's lesson. When a country or group is full of pride and won't admit mistakes or weaknesses, it finally falls apart from the weight of its denial. To be saved, either individually or as a group, you have to be humble. It means facing hard truths, accepting limits, and living with the results of decisions made in the past. If you don't have humility, pride will only make things worse. This is why Dostoevsky linked salvation not to success, but to pain and confession. He didn't say that people could make things right by getting powerful or successful. Instead, you can be forgiven when you put yourself down, say you were wrong, and take responsibility. It is the process of getting rid of lies until there is only truth left. When you know that truth and are humble enough to face it, you can start over. It's clear what the task is for you. You have to face your pride head on. If you want to be free from guilt and strong when you're hurting, pride tells you to lie, deny, or protect yourself over and over again. To be humble, you need to admit your mistakes, keep going, and start over. Being humble hurts, but being proud makes you alone and destroys you. Dostoevsky argued that redemption is impossible without humility because it is the only thing that heals the soul and brings people back together. If humility heals the soul, then duty takes it further than just the self. It was Dostoevsky who said that each of us is responsible for everything and everyone. What he meant was that no one is really alone, and that everything you do affects other people. You are responsible for everyone, not just the people in your local circle. This point of view is hard to accept because it makes you feel like the decisions you make don't just affect you. This idea is shown by Father Zosima in The Brothers Karamazov, who teaches that everyone is guilty for everything. This doesn't mean you are personally responsible for crimes you didn't do, but your decisions, your lack of action, and your silence make it possible for those crimes to happen. As Dostoevsky saw it, everything in people's lives was deeply linked, and nothing was truly private. Denying that everything is linked is the same as denying that you have an effect on other people. When you think about how even the smallest things you do can change the world, this lesson becomes clear. Someone's day is changed by a word of kindness or hate. Someone else's load changes because of an act of neglect or kindness. Families, workplaces, and towns are all affected by the choices people make about whether to be honest, greedy, or kind. Dostoevsky thought that recognizing this shared duty was the first step toward real humanity. He also said that denying blame makes corruption worse. Society breaks up when people think they only have to answer to themselves. People take part in injustice when they don't see how they are connected to it. When people don't take responsibility for their actions and leave everything up to others, tyranny grows. To Dostoevsky, the beginning of moral breakdown is refusing to take responsibility for everyone. It may look like there is too much desire. How can one person be in charge of everyone? It wasn't Dostoevsky's goal to stop you. It was to make you aware the moral climate of the people around you is shaped by what you do. If you don't do anything, bad things can grow. Being responsible doesn't mean ruling the whole world. It means realizing that no action stands alone. Whether you know it or not, your life affects other people. In real life, this lesson tells you to think about how the choices you make affect more than just you. That which is honest is strengthened when you tell the truth. When you show kindness, you make it more likely that people in your community will be kind. When you give in to your pride, anger, or greed, you make other people feel the same way. It is very important to Dostoevsky that people take responsibility. It is part of being human. If you think you only have to answer to yourself, you are living in denial. Being honest with yourself starts when you realize that you are responsible for other people. Dostoevsky thought that this was the only way to face guilt, grow kindness, and start the process of redemption. You can't get away from responsibility. It's what makes every choice possible. If you are responsible for other people, hopelessness shows you that you need hope. It was said by Dostoevsky that the stars shine better at night. He meant that the chance of hope is clearest when things look the worst. It's not that darkness and pain take away meaning. They just make the difference stronger, which lets you see it. Hope stays hidden when there is no sorrow. Light can't be seen for what it is without darkness. In his books, hopelessness is often what turns things around. Characters lose hope when they are stripped of their beliefs, and that's exactly when the smallest signs of goodness stand out clearly. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov's statement comes after he has been crushed by hopelessness, and it is only in that darkness that he starts to slowly change. There are powerful glimpses of faith in the brothers Karamazov during times of spiritual trouble. Dostoevsky thought that hopelessness was not the end, but the beginning of change. You can use this lesson in your own life. It can feel like you can't get out of depression when you're going through grief, failure, or loss. But Dostoevsky said that it is in these times that you can see the tiniest signs of hope the clearest: a kind word, a compassionate act, or your own strong sense of right and wrong. These things become clear in the dark, not because pain is good in and of itself, but because hopelessness takes away all the things that keep you going, making you see what really keeps you going. He saw hopelessness as both a threat and a chance. If it is not noticed, it ruins and eats away. When looked at directly, it gives us the chance to start over. This is why depression shows up so often in his writings. It shows the lies people tell themselves, and shows whether they will give up and become nihilistic or look for meaning. The lesson is that you can't avoid sadness, but you don't have to let it win. At the end, it can either be bad or good. For you, the task is not to stay away from despair, but to be honest about how you feel about it. Dostoevsky says that when you are in the dark, you should look for what you can still see, no matter how small. The stars shine brighter when it's dark outside. Even though that light might not take away the pain, it does change your perspective and show you that suffering is not the only thing in the world. Hope can only be seen after everything else has been taken away. Dostoevsky ties hopelessness to faith, kindness, and meaning in this way. By getting rid of illusions, darkness shows what really counts. If pain makes you more aware, then despair makes you more aware of what keeps you going. This isn't a call to seek sadness. It's just a reminder that when it comes, it can lead to clarity. That the stars shine better at night was Dostoevsky's way of teaching that despair is not the end, and that it is in this state that hope can be seen the clearest. Dostoevsky said that even though sadness shows us hope, people themselves are still a mystery. His writing said that man is a puzzle, and if you spend your whole life trying to figure it out, don't say you lost your time. This sentence shows how strongly he feels that people can't be boiled down to formulas, definitions, or set answers. The soul is contradictory, unexpected, and never-ending. Understanding other people or yourself is not a job that you finish. It's something you do all your life. In his writing, this mystery shows up in people who don't fit neatly into any one category. In Dostoevsky's books, no one is completely good or completely bad. They have parts of pride and humility, cruelty and kindness, doubt and faith. Raskolnikov has killed people and now wants to change. Even Karamazov is both a logical critic and a cruel seeker. Prince Myshkin is flawed and good at the same time. This complexity comes from Dostoevsky's view that a person can't be summed up by a single trait or assessment. The lesson for you is that you can always learn more about yourself. As time goes on, the decisions, experiences, and pain you've been through. If you think of yourself as a fixed personality, you're not seeing the depth of who you are. The same goes for how you see other people. You can't judge someone based on a single action, moment, or trait. You have to look at the whole picture. Dostoevsky wants you to be patient and humble as you think about this puzzle. He also told people to stay away from ideas that say they have the answer to all of life's problems. Philosophies that try to explain people through biology, reason, or social forces fail because they don't take into account the things that can't be measured, like the spiritual fights, contradictions, and choices that don't make sense. Dostoevsky thought that any attempt to get rid of mystery was an attempt to get rid of freedom and individuality, not a problem to be fixed, but an important part of what it means to be human. You know this to be true every day. People will often do things you didn't expect them to, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. You might act in ways you didn't think were possible, which would surprise you. These inconsistencies serve as a reminder that no one, including yourself, can be fully predicted or explained. There is still a mystery, and there is both danger and opportunity in that riddle. Being aware of this means you are okay with change. You or anyone else will never fully know them or yourself, but that doesn't mean the work is pointless. Dostoevsky thought that challenging the unknown made you more human. It makes you humble, which keeps you from being cocky, and it makes you compassionate, which reminds you that other people are just as complicated and confused as you are. Trying to understand yourself and the people around you for a long time is not a failure. It's the road itself. It wasn't a problem for Dostoevsky to figure out. It was a truth that he had to live. The self is endless, and trying to understand it is what life is all about. People are not simple, and the more you try to understand them, the more you are aware of that. That's why he told you not to give up the fight. The puzzle is not a waste of time. It tells you how to live your life. If people are a puzzle, then Dostoevsky's last lesson is that love and pain go hand in hand. Love to him wasn't about comfort or pleasure. Instead, it was about how sacrifice and endurance can make love stronger, because real love means giving something of yourself. Loving someone who doesn't hurt you is hollow. It's hard, takes time, and sometimes hurts. Because of this, his books show love that is put to the test by loss, betrayal, and hard times. Love that hasn't been tested is weak. Love that has been tested by pain is strong. This is shown by Alyosha in The Brothers Karamazov. He shows kindness not because it is easy, but because it takes time. In Crime and Punishment, Sonia stays with Raskolnikov while he suffers because she doesn't want to leave him and feels guilty with him. These cases show that love is real when both people are willing to go through pain together. It's not denying pain, it's being ready to go through it for someone else. You will find that this lesson questions the idea that love is only about feeling good. Dostoevsky said that love shows itself not when things are good, but when things go wrong. To stay with someone through sickness, loss, or hopelessness shows how deep love really is. This link isn't about dodging pain, it's about sharing it. Love becomes strong when it can handle pain. He also connected this to his bigger picture of life. Since you can't stop suffering, the only thing that matters is whether it separates you or brings you together. Love turns pain into bond, so two people can go through pain together. Without love, pain turns into hopelessness. When you love someone, your pain becomes a shared burden that makes your ties stronger. Dostoevsky saw that love is not separate from pain. It is what makes it what it is. This knowledge makes love hard, but it also gives it weight. A love that doesn't make sacrifices is only weak. Love that is willing to make sacrifices lasts a long time. It costs a lot to care for someone. You have to be patient, forgive them, and go through hard times with them. This is what Dostoevsky thought made love more than just an emotion. It was the most decent thing a person could do. All of the other lessons lead up to this one. It is impossible to avoid suffering. Freedom is hard. Evil dwells within. Guilt destroys. Compassion restores. Meaning supports. Truth frees. Humility redeems. Responsibility binds. Despair shows hope. And humanity remains a mystery. To sum it up, love is what gives life meaning, and pain is what makes love real. Thanks for hearing me. Don't forget to think about these things, and don't forget that knowing something doesn't mean doing anything. Dostoevsky's vision doesn't call for ease, it calls for truth. Just remember to stay aware of how heavy your choices are and how deeply you are human.